Hello, Replay family, and welcome back. Today, we're going to explore how to get your child tested and or diagnosed for autism spectrum disorder and what that process looks like. As I expressed in my earlier post, this was an extremely frustrating ordeal. So hopefully this video will help alleviate some of that frustration for those of you who are going on this journey. So let's jump right in. First thing you'll need to do is to see a pediatrician or a general practitioner and express your concerns. These doctors are supposed to check at your child's 18-month and 24-month wellness visits. But if you suspect symptoms or signs before then, be sure to let them know. If your child is school-aged, then express these concerns to the special services department so they can also be tested there. The second thing that will happen, your pediatrician will then give you a referral to an autism specialist. Now, there is most likely going to be some sort of waiting list. Unfortunately, there are more children with autism than there are providers to service them. So between these autism specialists actually giving therapies to children already diagnosed and then diagnosing children, wait lists can be anywhere from 3 months up to a year long. So be prepared to be told that you're going to have to wait, okay? The third thing, once you're finally off that waiting list and it's time for the test, they'll contact you, and it's usually a committee of people that do the test. So it won't just be one person that says, oh, your child has autism. It'll usually be a therapist or several therapists and some type of medical doctor. They'll let you know what to expect, and then you'll get those results at the end of the session usually. This is a long process for the most part, so just be prepared for kind of a long day there. The last thing, your results. Whatever your child's results are, will determine the type of intervention your child will need going from there. So there is no standard treatment for autism because, once again, it is a spectrum disorder. So therefore, whatever this child needs, this child may not need. It just depends on, like I said, what those results are and what deficits your child may be experiencing. For me, and for my oldest child, we'll start there. This process took almost a year, a little over a year. So my biggest and most important piece of advice is do not wait for a diagnosis to start intervention. Okay, I repeat, do not wait for a diagnosis to start intervention. Okay. My oldest son, Dion, was first diagnosed as developmentally delayed. That is probably what your pediatrician or what label your special services provider will give you so that your child can receive these services. So he started speech therapy at 18 months because, as I said in the previous video, he was using no words or anything that was recognizable as a word at this point. And then from there, we also enrolled in First Steps. First Steps is a state program for children under the age of 3 that have been identified as having some sort of developmental delay or disability. So they will send a therapist or whatever type of therapist that your child needs to your home, or you may have to go and see the provider, and your child will receive those services for free until they turn 3. Once they turn 3, they have aged out and you'll have to seek services elsewhere. So we did that for a while, along with going to the private speech therapist. When he turned 3, we had him tested with the school district, because whatever school district your child lives in, they are obligated to provide you with services if your child is tested and identified as needing those special services. So even if they don't attend that particular school, because he was 3 and he didn't go to preschool yet, so they still had to provide him with speech therapy services because he was diagnosed as developmentally delayed. Right after he turned 3, we were finally off the waiting list and referred to an autism specialist. And this was done at the University of Southern Mississippi's Child Development Center. And from there, the panel of doctors came up with the diagnosis of autism, and of course he was further diagnosed as being nonverbal. Nonverbal simply means that he does not have the appropriate amount of words that a child his age should have. So nonverbal does not mean they will never talk or they don't talk. It just means that they don't have the adequate amount of words that they use on a regular basis. A lot of doctors now are starting to call this pre-verbal because most nonverbal children do talk at some point. So from there, we were advised to get speech therapy and occupational therapy. Occupational therapy, for those of you who don't know, literally just helps you with everything that you do on a daily basis, such as getting dressed, going to the bathroom, feeding yourself, things that we don't really think about. Using a zipper, holding a pencil. It just depends on what your child needs at that point. Occupational therapy also addresses some of those sensory issues that we talked about in the last video. So we started with that through both the school district and privately. At this point, with the autism diagnosis, you're able to apply for Medicaid under the Disabled Child Living at Home waiver. And this is something that you do want to do because these services can definitely get expensive. So before this, our private insurance, which is state insurance, because in the state of Mississippi, autism is not recognized as a medical condition, a lot of the therapists or the therapies that the children need are seen as elective. So therefore, insurance does not cover a lot of the therapies that are needed. So a lot of the times you may have to pay out of pocket. So definitely want to apply for Medicaid once that diagnosis comes up. Dion, since he was rated or considered as nonverbal, was also tested for an AAC device. That's called an augmentative alternative communication device. Looks like a bulky tablet, and it's what he primarily used at that point to communicate, which Medicaid also paid for. Then we were able to also get into applied behavioral analysis therapy, ABA therapy, which some people in the autism community don't like to or have their children participate in, but it is kind of the standard and as far as research goes, as helping children with autism alleviate negative behaviors, and it rewards positive behaviors. So it definitely helped my children, and as long as they were involved in it, they actually enjoyed it for the most part. So there was also a waiting list for that. And ABA therapy is not covered by Medicaid in Mississippi. It is partially covered by our state insurance once you meet your deductible, but that is also something you have to consider with it not being covered So there may be another provider somewhere else. If someone knows of that, definitely let me know. But there may be other providers that do accept Medicaid, but for the most part, they don't. So that definitely complicates things, especially with me having 2 children that you have to cover these expenses for. So things get kind of tricky, but we were able to kind of work some things out there. Things were a little bit easier when it came to getting Noah diagnosed, my youngest son, because we had been through this process before already. And also with him having an older sibling that was already diagnosed, we were able to skip through some of the preliminary hoops that we had to go through before. So hopefully this information was helpful to you. Remember to take things one step at a time and one day at a time, because all you can do is what you can do today. Join the Replay family and community by liking and sharing this page. And if you have questions or you would like me to cover something specific in my episodes to come, send me a direct message on Replay or email us at replayasd@gmail.com.